saw that. Brick killed a guy.
Marvel. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is in trouble. We're officially into Phase 5, and I couldn't be less interested in the future of this franchise, and I used to be a pretty big fan. I wrote and recorded a full video about Ant-Man and the Haircut Quantumania, but it ended up being just another review of the movie with a, geez guys, I don't know if this is going to be a good phase at the end, but what's the point? Everyone had the same problems with that movie. It was full of plot conveniences, MODOK stinks, Wasp does nothing, Kang was cool but then got corny, and in the end, everything was put neatly back into place like the movie never happened. And one of the things I ended my original video on was that this is nothing new for Marvel. Every time I go to see one of these movies, I have the same complaints. They ignored character development. They wasted this cool character. Oh, you're telling me she spent 30 years fighting a multiverse level threat and didn't say anything to anyone about it? Enough is enough with these guys.
A center for ants!
A while back, I made a video about how Multiverse of Madness seemed like it could be signaling the end of the MCU we once loved. How Disney Plus shows, and at this point even the mainline movies, seem like a chore, and the payoff for all that investment isn't nearly enough anymore. In that video, I said that the MCU can't keep cranking out these mediocre to bad shows and expect everyone to keep up with the overall story. And after I made that video, we got She-Hulk, Love and Thunder, and now Ant-Man 3.
Boring!
But the thing is, now, I think the writers know this, and their answer to it is just not expect anyone to be caught up. They're just making standalone movies with subtle strings that tie one or two of them together at a time. I get that's how the MCU was built, but they didn't push out these stories at this volume back then, in a connected universe where each IP has to be particularly careful not to significantly change the universe. Whatever happened to that giant celestial hand that was sticking out of the ocean anyway? It's boring, and nothing about this universe is likely to change in any meaningful way until the next Avengers film in 2025. There's 50 plus hours of content between now and then.
Can I go back to jail now?
Standalone superhero movies were not what I liked about the MCU in the first place. It was the risks they took, the ambitious nature of the whole thing, and it all came to a head in one of the best climaxes I could have hoped for. I don't think I could smile harder than I smiled when Cap said Avengers Assemble in Endgame, and I probably watched Thor's Bring Me Thanos scene every other month. But now we're kinda back where it all started, and instead of the MCU being fresh and new, it's stale and overdone. Superheroes, villains, the world's at stake, comic relief. We're starting to notice blemishes that have always been there, but now seem more pronounced. Seriously, I mean, we're supposed to believe that Janet just said nothing about Kang this entire time? To her husband even? I mean, that's a pretty significant thing to hide from someone. I wouldn't just accept it if my partner told me nothing about her entire time in the quantum realm for years at this point, and then this ended up being what she was hiding.
I'm really sorry.
To circle back to my original point, if Multiverse of Madness was the beginning of the end, then Quantumania was Act 2. Or maybe even Act 3 at this point. They spent $200 million on this thing, and it is not doing as well as they thought it would. Marvel Studios definitely has deep pockets, and they're committed to the products, but it's clear that MCU movies aren't the must-see, sold-out opening weekend type draws they used to be. With movies costing much more to make, and more people just waiting to see these mediocre superheroes on Disney+, I don't really see how Marvel can continue to afford these high-budget flops. When you're relying on these movies that we've seen a dozen times at this point to keep your studio afloat,
You guys are so screwed now!
I don't really know why everyone continues to hold the MCU to such a high standard. They've always had issues with things like wasted characters and plot conveniences. I mean, Quicksilver was a part of the team for 5 minutes, and the whole reason they even reversed the snap in Endgame was because of a rat. But it was one thing when the movies were good, and when the conveniences and half-written characters didn't take center stage. In Ant-Man 3, Darren's dumb bald head was so poorly CGI'd that every time I saw it, I thought of how they wasted all that time and money making his helmet look awesome, and then seemingly no time on what would actually be on screen most of the time, which was Darren's stretch-res face. That's not exactly an immersive train of thought. Also, Kang's blue mask looked really stupid. That one seemed like a pretty easy one to get right. And that's what I'm saying. The MCU is supposed to have top-notch visuals, but we seem to have laughable CGI in almost every Marvel release at this point.
Does that look real?
In that particular shot, no, actually.
Compare the Ant Army scene in Ant-Man 3 to the Avengers Assemble scene in Endgame that I mentioned earlier. Both include massive armies that come in and save the day at the last minute, but the latter was so much more exciting. The setup for it was in front of our faces the whole time. We saw the Hulk snap everyone back into existence. We knew everyone should be coming back. But that OG Avengers versus Thanos fight made us forget about it until we saw an injured Captain America stand face to face with Thanos' army, ready to die. In Ant-Man 3, we needed several lines of exposition to explain something with nearly zero setup that makes hardly any sense, involving an army of CGI bugs we don't care about at all. And those are the real heroes of the movie. Random ants sucked into the quantum realm beat the most dangerous known threat in the multiverse. Nice.
The whole system makes me feel insignificant.
We need to linger a bit on Kang since he's supposed to be the next big bad of the universe, even though we aren't getting another Avengers movie for another 2 years. I was relatively optimistic about Kang and the future of the MCU going into Ant-Man 3. His appearance in Loki was some decent foreshadowing, and he was incredibly menacing to start, talking about all the Avengers he killed, manipulating gravity with a flick of the wrist. Pretty cool stuff. But then, in typical MCU fashion, they depowered him so he could fight and lose to one of the lesser heroes on the team. And then came the post-credit scene. I don't know about you guys, but the people in my theater laughed during the reveal of the multiple Kang variants. I know the MCU likes its gags, but I don't think they were going for laughs here.
Laughs are cheap. I'm going for gasps. Where do you see, dude? Gasps are where it's at.
This guy is going to be the new Thanos? These guys, who just had one of their most powerful variants beaten by Ant-Man? And the army of frothing idiot variants made no sense. Am I supposed to be excited for the next 2+ years of content relying on these guys? Just look at this lineup for Phase 5. Other than Guardians of the Galaxy and maybe Blade, does any of this excite you?
Not me.
I didn't expect to be blown away by Ant-Man 3. The worst part of it is that I'm not even disappointed. It was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be based on the other recent releases, and that's a pretty bad outlook for this whole thing. To be fair, I still think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be sick, but I thought the same thing about Love and Thunder. And even if it is good, isn't it going to be the last one of these with multiple characters probably dying or otherwise leaving the board for now? If Guardians 3 rules, I'll be more excited for the DCEU. We're in the thick of a new age for on-screen Marvel superheroes, and that age is pretty boring.
Tonight is the beginning of Phase 5. It's amazing, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's relatable, colossal, very, very big picture down there in the quantum realm.
So is the MCU dying? No, probably not. It may never die. As much shit as I'm talking about it right now, I still have a Disney Plus subscription and will probably watch the bulk of this junk as it comes out. But I'm done expecting anything good to come out of it. I think the Rotten Tomatoes critic score is a pretty significant indicator of how people are starting to feel about the MCU. It has the same score as the Eternals, and I think we can mostly agree that Quantumania was better than the Eternals. I would even say it was less disappointing than Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder. Instead of a reaction to Ant-Man 3 in a vacuum, I think the critic score is the reaction to the current state of the MCU. Boring, repetitive, who cares?
Take the goddamn phone.
I've accepted that the golden age is gone, and I've officially lost hope that they're ever going to turn it around. Here's to hoping that James Gunn learns from this in the DC universe. Of course, that's just my take. If you disagreed with me and are still excited for what the MCU has to offer, let me hear it in the comments. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.